Welcome to this afternoon's Best Practices session. My name is Marielle, and I'm delighted to welcome Mike and Mohsen from Sweet Tooth. They're here today to talk about customer service as a marketing strategy. I saw these gentlemen give this presentation last year in Waterloo, and they do a fantastic job. So we thought that it would be really valuable to offer this presentation to our community and invited them here to Mars. Before I introduce them, I just wanted to let you know that on November 15th, we have a presentation on PR fundamentals for startups, and that's being presented by Hill & Knowlton. So you can check that out. It's on our website. The registration link can be found at marcd.com/bestpractices. So Mike is the co-founder and vice president of business development at Sweet Tooth. He's an expert in the areas of customer service and customer retention. He has experience in designing and optimizing customer loyalty programs for hundreds of multi-channel businesses. He's committed to helping businesses build loyal customers through powerful and engaging strategies, and he's developed the internal processes for both client and partner interactions at Sweet Tooth. Mohsen is the co-founder at Sweet Tooth, and he directs all of the client support efforts. He's an expert in the area of customer service and customer experience management. He leverages his background in customer service management at both Apple and RIM, and he's established customer service methodologies which have made Sweet Tooth a leader in its industry. And you both went to school in Waterloo. Is that where you met?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah? Okay, maybe you can let us know a little bit about how you got started. So please help me in welcoming Mike and Mohsen.
So to give you some background on Mohsen and myself, we both went to software engineering at University of Waterloo. We decided to start Sweet Tooth out of that with a couple other co-founders from University of Waterloo as well. So it's a University of Waterloo success story, but we do have some of Mars tied in there as well. Okay, so the focus of our talk today is to look at customer service from the perspective of a startup. And for those of you who are involved with startups or advising startups or are somehow have experience with startups, we want to sort of provide information on what we did at Sweet Tooth, what we see works in building scalable companies, and then also look at a couple things that we can do that you can implement today. Or if you're advising companies, things that you could implement sort of next week or in the next few months to really get things going and provide a culture of customer service for your startup. And it doesn't have to be the traditional things that people perceive to require a lot of time and work. So some background on what we do at Sweet Tooth. So we have customer loyalty software for e-commerce. So what we do is we provide merchants with ways to bring their customers back to their store as opposed to going and to other merchants. And we oversee about $300 million in transactions online each year. So those are purchases that are either rewarded or people redeem points on. But generally we provide points programs for these online stores. We have partnerships with Magento, with PayPal and eBay. And we have about 3,000 paying merchants who are using our software. And so obviously it's important for us to, and it was important when we had 100 paying merchants, to build something in terms of customer support that's scalable out to that number. I mean, if you think about if we were talking to each customer one-on-one about all their problems, that's not scalable. But if we don't talk to anyone, that's obviously not going to be great in terms of retention. So we'll go through what we did at Sweet Tooth and then what works at other companies as well. So we looked at what we were going to do with Sweet Tooth about 2.5 years ago, and we realized we weren't going to do the standard picking up the phone, doing a lot of cold calls, and then trying to win business that way. What we wanted to do is build a reputation around our company, and this reputation provides a stepping stone along the way for, first you start out with your early adopters, the people who are willing to trust in a brand that's not really around or established. And then you use that to build credibility. And so what we've done is we've actually acquired some very large customers in e-commerce, all through word of mouth marketing and customer service and reputation. So for example, Sheckies came to us saying, I've heard good things about Sweet Tooth. And then when investors ask us, how do we acquire a customer? It's tricky to pinpoint exactly where that came from, but we know it's all as a result of our positive brand experience that we've created. And that allows us to have a sales model that has no outbound sales. We rely on everyone coming to us. You've probably heard a lot about inbound marketing and content generation. We started off with customer service as our marketing strategy initially. So I want you to keep your phone on throughout this. You can tweet at us at Sweet Tooth, and we'll try and address all questions as we go, or after the presentation, we'll get back to you. So the agenda, what we want to cover today is sort of the benefits of reputation and keeping a great reputation both in a startup and as you scale. Controlling the customer experience, so making sure that every touch point that a customer has with your brand is consistent and also provides them with the information they need, the experience they're looking for. We'll look at strategies implemented at Sweet Tooth, specific systems, processes, and things that we put in place in order to ensure that great customer experience. Then we're going to look at ways you can measure effective customer experience, because it's all great implementing all these strategies, but unless you can actually quantify things, then it becomes sort of an exercise that you can't really track. And then building a customer service culture is the last thing there. And the culture is extremely important, because if you've ever scaled a company from sort of 4 people where everyone's talking every day up to sort of around the 20-person range where start not interacting with each person every day, then the culture of things becomes really important, because it's easy to lose track of the message that you're trying to provide customers, the message that you're trying to provide your employees. So we'll look at building effective customer service culture as well. So our reputation, as I mentioned, is built on positive customer service initially. We launched a product that had tons of bugs in it. We launched a product that brought down websites, did absolutely the worst stuff initially. And we were responsible for people losing sales. We were responsible for lots of things. That was when we initially launched our beta product of Sweet Tooth. And the way we stood apart from everyone else who was in the e-commerce space is by helping those people. Like, we were working nights, weekends, absolutely everything we could do to help people. And that positive customer service experience helped us gain reviews basically in the Magento Connect store. So we're partners with Magento, which is an e-commerce platform. They have a Magento Connect store. That's sort of like an app store for e-commerce. The same way there'd be reviews in the app store on iTunes, there is a review section on Magento Connect. And our reviews started to reflect the fact that we were providing great customer service. And if you buy a product, the product doesn't have to be great quality if the customer service is amazing. So that's what we tried to do initially, because we knew we wouldn't be able to get it right off the bat. And it took us a long time to develop a stable product that can start doing low touch sales. But I mean, that's part of being a startup. Unless you're developing something that's super simple, you're going to have lots of bugs, and you need to provide effective customer service. So our reputation was important initially. So a couple of the reviews on here. One explains where, I don't know if it's on this one or the previous slide, but one explains how someone was helped late on a Sunday night and they'd never encountered customer service like that before. So things like that help people just read about you and learn that they're going to basically, they can put their trust in a startup, whereas otherwise they would usually go with a larger company that they know they can trust. So the benefits of reputation are huge, because we like early on as a company, Delta Airlines came to us and they said they wanted a loyalty program for their online store. And how can they know to trust Sweet Tooth? And so what we were able to do is refer them customers that we'd had so far. And I mentioned using customer service as sort of a stepping stone especially if you're B2B, if you're trying to acquire larger and larger customers, using your reputation as a stepping stone. So first acquiring a customer who is doing $1 million a year in sales online, then using the reputation that you gain there to acquire a customer who does $5 million a year in sales online. So we were sort of around the $5 million a year customer online, and then Delta contacted us. So we got a couple of our $5 million a year customers and had them act as advocates for Sweet Tooth. And this was effective because even though those customers didn't have a great experience with our product initially, like our product had lots of bugs in it initially, they were able to vouch for us, and Delta Airlines eventually signed with us. And so that's one of the benefits of reputation early on, and why customer service is extremely important in that, because the product is not always going to sell itself initially. So the customer service has to make up for that. So one of the things you're wondering probably is we had this reputation, how do we control it? And we did a couple things consciously by controlling the customer experience. So what we did is we determined interaction channels. And so this is one of the things that I want you to think about the business that you're involved in, or think about the businesses that you advise, and think about what interaction channels do they have. So if it's B2C, it's probably pretty simple, but B2B is slightly more complicated. So think about all the places where customers, people paying for the service, not users, interact with the brand. And make sure that you ensure consistency. I'm sure you've probably found it pretty frustrating if you're trying to get in touch with customer support through a phone number, and then you email in and get an instant response, or vice versa. You're trying to email in, get responses, you call in, get everything dealt with right away. Everything should be consistent throughout the entire brand. And then we also determine reputation channels. So this is everywhere customers can discuss their experience with your brand. So why is this important? Because you need to be everywhere your customers are. And if you're not there, then conversations are going to happen that you don't know about, and issues may arise that you're not aware of. So interaction channels can include, but are definitely not limited to, email. So that's the primary way, as a new startup and as a new business, that you will interact with your customers. So make sure you have a consistent email policy in your company. So we always want to be friendly to our customers in emails. You want to be polite, use proper grammar, things like that. Face-to-face or phone conversations. So have a guide in your company for talking on the phone, exactly how you want to treat customers. Your website needs to be congruent with the first two as well. So if you're super serious on your, say you're selling security software to the government, I'm sure you wouldn't be super friendly on your phone calls or anything, so you wouldn't want to be super friendly on your website. Making sure all three are in line is important. You also want to make sure you have a support portal, and Mohsen's going to go into this a little bit later on, but how you set up a support portal to provide quality customer support to your customers in a scalable way is one of the most important things you can do as a business. And then obviously we have Twitter, other social media channels. You may have forums where you interact with customers. You may have a message board on your site where you interact with customers. Make sure that you write a process and outline the processes for interacting in all these channels to make sure that it's a congruent customer experience on every single channel. So our SweetTooth interaction channels include our website. So as you can tell, we sort of have a fun, positive brand. We like to do the exact same with all of our other interaction channels. So we have a support portal here, and we try and be friendly with our support, provide quick, fast, easy information. So if you click around our website today, I think we just recently changed our homepage actually, but our homepage is friendly, easy to use, and you can find the information you want very quickly. So we provide similar things in our support system. So same branding, easy to find the information that you want, and you will get quick responses when you get in touch with us. So a customer feels like it's the same brand everywhere they go. So each customer, no matter how they interact with our brand, is experiencing the exact same thing. So what you can do in order to improve your interaction channels, one thing that I like to always recommend is, the first one we were talking about, email, is ensure quick responses. So you can use Google Apps. If you don't have this set up, I would recommend Google Apps over Outlook if you're setting up systems for a startup. And then also using Streak. So Streak.com is a system that's free for startups. It's actually free for any business, but it's most applicable to startups. And what it lets you do is track processes. So you can track a customer, for example, you can have a customer complaint pipeline. So a customer complains, you create an issue in Streak, and you can track that all the way through to a resolution. You could do the same for a sale. Customer contacts you interested in your product. You can track them all the way through to a purchase. So Streak is important because it interacts straight with Google Apps in your email, and you'll be able to track all the interactions with your brand and look at it in a visual way. So, for example, Rogers has done a big revamp of their interaction channel on their website, and they've made it very easy for you to get in touch. Now, I'm sure some of you have been on the phone with Rogers, and that's not as great of an experience, but they are working on that, and they've identified the fact that an interaction channel needs to be the same as any other interaction channel that you contact a brand with. So, interaction channel essentials. So the very important things that you need to have for every interaction channel you have. So have a process for every possibility. What if someone complains about your brand on Twitter? What do? What if someone writes a positive review for you but sends it to your email? And make sure you have a consistent monitoring process and determine the patterns that happen most often. So this is important for tracking. And I'll go into tracking a little bit and metrics a little bit later on. But determine the most common flows that occur in your customer experience. When customers have an issue, where do they go to the most? We noticed one thing that was happening for us is that customers were complaining about issues with our software on our review board. Now you can probably imagine why that's not a great place to have bugs in our software displayed. We don't want people reading, when they're in a purchase decision for our software, we don't want them reading reviews saying, this brought down my whole website, can you guys help? It's like, we probably want them to contact us through another channel. So we need to have we put in place a process for as soon as someone posts that review or the issue on our review board, we would get in touch and say, hey, email us right away at support@sweettooth.com or sweettoothhq.com. And we'll get in touch right away. And so those quick responses, other people would start to see those and they would stop complaining on the review boards. So noticing customer flow patterns is important because you can see the most common things that occur and react to those in advance and start adjusting to the flow that your customers take in general. And then leave no channel unattended. So always respond quickly and ask questions. Responding quickly, I can't emphasize that enough. It's really important in the early stages of a startup that if you have early customers, they're putting a lot of trust in in basically a company that they don't know is going to be around in 6 months. And so by responding quickly, you're showing them respect in return. So responding quickly is really important in any channel. So Twitter, review board, forum, make sure you're monitoring all channels and you're responding quickly within all channels. That seems like a lot of work, but there's systems that you can set up to monitor all these, and it's worth it, basically. Frankly, it is worth it, the time that you will spend monitoring these channels compared to the reputation that you get if you don't respond to anything. And ask questions, obviously. You may want to ask, why did you post this on the review board, or why did you take this particular flow? That's also helpful to know as well. So tools for interaction management, there's a few, and it's definitely not limited to what's on here. So one of the ones that I would recommend everyone trying out, like everyone in this room, regardless of whether you interact with customers, whatever you do, try Boomerang for Gmail or Outlook. So what that does is it ensures that you can get responses to emails. So when you send an email out, you can check a box that says, return this to my inbox if the person doesn't respond in 2 days. And so what you can do is follow up on people. So if someone contacts us and says, I have an issue with my store, if you don't fix it, then I'm going to ask for a refund. And then we send them an email out and says, here's the things you can do to fix it. And then we want to ensure a response on that. Because if we sort of send that email out, it goes into their spam box, then what happens? We're going to end up with a bad review and a request for a refund. And this can happen a lot with startups, because startups do end up going to spam quite a bit. So try Boomerang for Gmail. You can probably think of all the other applications where you would want to be following up on emails where people don't respond. I do it a lot for people internally at our company. If I'm asking for something from someone else in the company, they don't respond within a certain period of time, then I send them a follow-up email. It's really applicable to literally everyone, but it's great for customer experience management and customer support. So I talked about Streak as well. Zendesk is what we use for our customer support management. And so this is how we set up sort of a customer support portal, and it's how we manage all of our interactions with customer support. So Mohsin can answer any specific questions with Zendesk or support systems, because we've been through a few now. And we've sort of settled on Zendesk because it allows us to track all the common issues that are coming in to basically our support system, and then improve on that and work out which flows are common, and then moving forward from there. We also have Olark, which is really important for startups. So Olark themselves are a startup out of Y Combinator, but we know the founders well, and they provide live chat for a website. It's really important to have live chat on a new startup's website, and providing this to sort of the early adopters who are going to be trying out a startup's product is really important, because they can provide instant feedback and you can have conversations with customers, whereas normally it would just be an email sent to a contact form. And you're not really going to have a conversation out of an email sent to a contact form. It'll be maybe 1 or 2 emails sent back and forth. Obviously, we have Salesforce. I wouldn't recommend Salesforce for startups, just because it's a lot of work to get going. but you could probably start with something like Streak, and then Salesforce is better for scaling. So one example of a company that's doing customer interaction management really well is 37 Signals. So they provide you with all the information that you need on their website. And when you finally do get in touch with support, their products are great, so you generally don't need support. But that's taken them many years to do. When you do get in touch with their support, they're very friendly and very helpful. And what they do is they actually have a customer sort of satisfaction index that they publish. So after you're done with their support, you either give them a smiley face or a sad face. I think it's probably later in the presentation, but you can basically rate the customer service that you experienced, and then they post that. So they're proud of the customer service that they provide, and they use that as a marketing tool to win new customers by saying, you're not going to run into troubles with our software, and if you do, you're going to be happy 98% of the time. So moving on to reputation channels. So we talked about interaction channels where you're actually talking to the customer, getting feedback from them. Reputation channels are everything where they take their interaction and their experience with the interaction, and they can make it public to the world. Obviously, Twitter is the most public, but you also have things like review boards, which was really big for us at SweetTooth. You can probably think of, if you're advising or if you're part of a startup, you can probably think about the ones that are most important to you or where other potential customers are looking. So you can look at blogs. So if there's influencers in a particular industry or the industry that you're in, there's probably really influential bloggers. If they have a bad experience with your brand, that's not going to turn out well. There's forums, and then there's obviously word of mouth. So word of mouth is the hardest one to monitor, but everything else can be monitored in a systematic way. You can get Hootsuite for Twitter. You can have someone check the review boards once a day. For blogs, you can set Google alerts. For forums, you can do the same thing. Absolutely everything needs to be monitored, and you need to get on things quick when people either provide you good or bad experience. So if they provide you good experience, you probably should respond and thank them for the great review or thank them for spreading the word about your brand. So our reputation channels, as I mentioned before, is a review. The primary one for us when we were building our brand is a review board on the Magento Connect website, which is sort of the app store for e-commerce. Our reviews in here were not great before we put into place a systematic way for monitoring them. And then after that, you can literally see the day that we put this in place, we don't really have any negative reviews after that. So it's all positive reviews. And now, obviously, our click-through rates improve, our download rates improve, and the number of people we convert into paying customers improves dramatically because the first interaction with our brand is really hard to reverse. And if we create a positive interaction with the brand the first time, then we're able to make the sale that much easier, as opposed to people coming in and getting in touch with us and saying, what if my store breaks? Like, how do I know you guys are going to be there? As opposed to now what they do is they say, all right, well, I know you guys have a great brand and great support, but I have a question about this feature. That's a much easier sale than the first conversation that I mentioned. Okay, so the second one, obviously, that we put priority on is Twitter. Depends really what the brand is that you're looking at. So the startup that you're involved in or the business you're involved in may or may not have a lot of influencers in Twitter. Ours does. And so it's important for you guys to take a look at your industry and see whether the influencers are on Twitter or another social media channel and react to that appropriately and monitor that appropriately. So there's lots of tools out there for that, including Hootsuite, TweetDeck, the list goes on for that. So one company that does a really great job of monitoring their reputation channels is WestJet. So you can see WestJet on this list here. They're basically commenting in response to comments that have been posted to them or tweets that have been posted at them. And what they're doing, even though each single one on there is a positive tweet, they're responding and saying, great, I'm glad you had a great time. And then 1 in 20 maybe will be negative, like I lost my bags or something like that. And they'll respond with a coupon for something, so like 20% off their next trip or some other positive experience to take that one negative and turn it into a positive. And then that person will probably create a positive review at some point in the future. So it's basically getting on things as quick as possible. Obviously, it's impractical for a startup to have someone dedicated to Twitter like WestJet likely does if they're doing this type of response rates. But there's tools you can put in place to notify you when something like this happens around your brand. So there's a lot of tools for reputation management that I mentioned. So we have TweetDeck, Hootsuite, Radian 6, which is more on the enterprise level. Like you probably know they were out of Halifax and they got acquired by Salesforce for a good amount. And we also have If This Then That. So I would recommend checking out If This Then That. So it's ifttt.com. And you can basically use that to set up rules on the internet. So event and action rules, or cause and effect rules. So you can say, if someone mentions us on Twitter, then send me an email letting me know that. Or if, you can literally set up anything. I would recommend it. It's pretty cool. You can say, if it's going to rain tomorrow, send me a text message letting me know to bring an umbrella. Like, it's really effective, though, for customer service management. And initially, we were using If This Then That a lot to set up our systems. So quality of interaction's important. So the number one thing, and I've mentioned it twice already, is responding quickly. This makes the customer feel very, very important. I don't know if you've ever got in touch with customer support and you've got a quick response. It makes you feel great. Like, it makes you feel like they are literally just there to help you. And no matter what size of a company you are, that has a greater effect than a lot of other things that you can do, including other marketing techniques. And it gives the impression that you guys are very, very competent. So providing that quick support can be the difference between a sale and a non-sale, and losing a sale, basically, in some cases. So always ensure that needs are met. So answer all questions and concerns. So if you've ever got in touch with customer support, I know I keep talking about you getting in touch with customer support, but it's important to put yourselves in the footsteps of the customer, because that's what they're experiencing. If you've ever got in touch with customer support and asked a question or asked a series of questions and they don't all get answered, that's pretty frustrating. So make sure that all questions are answered and all concerns are addressed. And then also try Boomerang. I would recommend it again. And the fact that I'm mentioning it for the second time, it should, I hope, gets you to try it out. And then provide the unexpected. So Mohsen's going to get into this a little bit more, but make sure that whatever you promise in your channels and whatever customers are expecting, provide one step above that or two steps above that, and make it personal. Don't use stock templated emails. Don't send people to links with instructions. So say you have a knowledge base or instruction manual set out, and people ask for help with setting up your product. Then if you just paste the link in and say, here you go, send, that's what they're expecting. That's the level of support that they expect from a company. If you say, here's the link, and I would recommend getting started with these steps, then that's one level above what they would expect. 2 levels above would be writing them a personal note on how you think it would help their site if they set it up in this manner. So providing the unexpected is always important, because that creates long-term customers and creates a huge improvement in the rate at which customers go and create positive experiences on your reputation channels. So if you think about WestJet, like, why are so many people tweeting at WestJet with positive experiences? It's because they provide one level above the expected level of customer support. If you've ever been on a WestJet flight, you probably notice how everyone is really friendly, which doesn't normally happen on other airlines. So that's the level of unexpected customer service that they provide, which creates the positive experiences and gets people onto the reputation channels and spreading the word about your company. And that's really the marketing element. Okay, so I'm going to pass it off to Mohsen now. Mohsen's the head of our customer support at SweetTooth, and he implemented all the systems and strategies we use to interact with customers. So he's going to explain what we've implemented at SweetTooth, what worked, hasn't worked for us, and how we sort of improved along the way.
Awesome. All right, thank you, Mike. All right, hi everyone. So yeah, as Mike mentioned, I kind of worked with our team to implement our customer service strategies over at SweetTooth and kind of gauge what works and what doesn't work. And today I want to kind of briefly talk about some of those strategies and some of those implementations in terms of what we actually did, practicality. Okay, so before I get into that, I wanted to quickly talk about one of the biggest success stories in customer service and the customer service culture. That's really a very close inspiration to us as a company. So how many of you have actually heard about Zappos? All right, good. Quite a number of you. So as you know, Zappos was very successful at kind of making customer service their core value, and that was one of their biggest kind of success metrics. Zappos was actually, they started their company in 1999, and they were first pretty much not profitable at all. Within the first year, they had 1.6 million in gross sales, and I guess they did grow quite a bit by 2001, but then they realized that, okay, this is still not bringing in profit, so they decided to change their strategy. And in 2003, they actually decided to start focusing on long-term gains and kind of put customer service as their main focus in the company. And lo and behold, end of 2003, 70 million, and that led to pretty much selling the company to Amazon at $1.2 billion. And all of this final valuation, they achieved with very minimal advertising and mostly by word of mouth, just being there for their customers. They did quite a lot of things to kind of achieve that. One of their strongest mottos over at Zappos is delivering a wow through service. There's actually a really funny story that goes with how good customer service at Zappos actually was. So the story goes like this. They had a vendor that was working with the company, and the vendor just decided to give customer service a call at 3 a.m. asking for a pepperoni pizza delivered to their hotel room. Now, in a normal case, typical customer service, the rep would probably laugh a bit and then be like, okay, you've called the wrong number, or try looking up in the address book or something to find a phone number. But what the customer service rep at Zappos did, actually humored the call and basically stayed on the line with them to kind of Google the closest pizza shop and actually get them a number. And I think actually they helped them order the pizza to their hotel room. So that's really. That really left a very good impression with that vendor who kind of started continue to do good business with Zappos. But it just shows to what extent the dedication of a customer service rep there. And they did tons of other stuff to kind of impress their customers. Things that they would do. They would randomly kind of send packages to their customers ahead of time. And that's kind of going above the expectation. So you're expecting your package today, tomorrow. You'd get it actually today by the end of the day, and that's like, wow, this is awesome. This is amazing. They would offer full year returns, and they had a whole array of strategies that they would constantly come up with. I actually have a really funny video here about what actually happens at Zappos. This is actually a.
Thank you for calling Zappos. How can I help you today?
So I have a little problem.
Mm-hmm.
I ordered a dress yesterday afternoon, and it showed up this morning.
Okay.
I'm not really emotionally ready for it yet. So I put it in the garage, under a tarp.
Totally understand.
So can I send it back?
Yes, you can absolutely send it back. You will have to touch the box, though.
Thank you so much.
So yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's kind of the approach that Zappos took to kind of get that high level of customer service. We'd like to think that we're following Zappos very closely, kind of with our own twist. So here's an example of how we actually managed to get a wow from one of our customers, and we didn't have to do anything too spectacular. This is just a response that basically they sent us an email before hours and we immediately responded. This is at 7 a.m. This is before business hours. So customer updating us on their situation because like we helped them with something and they actually wowed and they're like, wow, this just made my day. So it doesn't really have to be difficult. It's just, as Mike said, kind of going above the level of expectation they have from a typical company. So how did we actually go about implementing all of this customer service strategy at Sweet Tooth? Well, we started with our culture just like Zappos. We made sure that we have the right resources available for our customers. We built an awesome support team. We constantly look for ways to exceed expectations, and we really make the whole experience personal for our customers. And I'll get into this. So let's start with our culture. So we strongly believe that a service of customer, basically customer service, a culture of priority customer service has to come from the very top of the company. It has to be a value for everyone in the company. You can't expect the person who's on the phone or dealing directly with their customers, your customer service rep, to care about customers if the whole company doesn't, if the CEO doesn't, or if the COO doesn't really care about that. It has to come from the top. It has to be a core value for your company, and everyone has to kind of understand that and make sure they're comfortable with that. Some of the things that we do, for instance, as Mike mentioned, our review board on Magento Connect, we actually get quite a lot of really good reviews, and they're pretty much like non-solicited. They basically, we help out a customer. They say thanks. Wow, this is amazing. This is awesome. How can I thank you better? And we're like, okay, well, if you want to leave us a review, we have actually a review board on Magento Connect. You feel free to leave us a review. And every time we get one of those, we actually email out the review internally among our team, our basically like the whole company. So engineers, customer service, kind of sales team, everyone kind of sees that and just gives everyone such a huge motivation, and they realize that how good we actually are at dealing with customers and how good, how people actually love us. And that just keeps that culture strong, that motivates everyone else. Also, our communications within the support team and within kind of like the customer service realm, they're kind of open. We don't close them up. It's not a one-on-one thing. It's kind of publicly out there for our company. So it gets a lot of peer reviews. There's a lot of commenting on things, and if someone notices that, hey, this was like an amazing response that you gave to a customer, we see that, we appreciate it, we encourage that, and there's times where we have someone new on the team, they're not too familiar with how our culture works. They constantly get feedback too. So it's just building that strong culture within the company. That's one of our big success points. Okay, so our resources. Resources is again another huge important thing. Making sure that customers actually feel that we can support them if they need help. And this is as Mike mentioned, especially during the whole sales process, they want to know that if they went ahead and gave us our money, we're not going to just leave them hanging. There's going to be different ways that they can get help from us. So we have again, like we have live chat on pretty much on our website. So people can actually get in touch with us and have a real conversation if they don't want to talk on the phone. Our phone number is actually available on every page with one click away. So people know that they can call us if they want to. In fact, we encourage people talking to us. We have a sandbox and demo version of our software right available on our website, so that people can actually try it and know what they're expecting, what they're getting. We have a knowledge base of over 200 articles that we maintain periodically. we add new articles to it. Basically, these are things that we've noticed people, being concerned about, or just about the product, not knowing how to, work with it, or just extra tips or whatnot. It's readily available through our website, and they don't have to do much to get there. We've made some really kind of intelligent search features to kind of go through knowledge-based articles and pick the one that's most appropriate for like a given question. We also have community forums available, which is basically where our customers can actually interact with each other, collaborate on features, on if they want to extend the functionality of our software or anything else, that's where they would go. And of course, last but not least, actually one of the most significant is our awesome all-star support team, which we built. I'll get into that. So we have a multi-tiered team of really talented support agents at Sweet Tooth. We basically we have an internal kind of internal wiki system that we constantly document our best practices, our common procedures, and things to kind of keep us on our toes with anything daily that happens. We constantly reference those and we constantly update those. So that's how we make sure that we're maintaining that same service culture even with our support agents. As Mike said, we take response times very seriously. About 90% of our initial responses are within an hour, and that's very key. Again, it makes people know that you care about them, that you're there for them. We always stay in touch with our customers. Just to make sure that they're never left in the dark. Let's say they report an issue and we're kind of investigating that. We give them constant updates, even if we're still looking into it. We're like, okay, so Alex, this is what we've done so far, and this is what we've learned. We still haven't figured out the root cause of the problem, but here are a few other things that we're about to check today. We're a bit busier. There has been times where we've had a lot of volume. But we try to communicate that and try to be transparent with our customers and be like, hey, listen, I'm probably not going to have time to finish this off today, but I'll make sure that I have an update for you by tomorrow. And we make sure that we deliver on that. And it goes great, and people actually respect us so much for talking to them like that and actually letting them know, giving them the updates. If we don't hear back from someone, we don't just assume that their problem was magically solved. We try to get back, we try to follow up, we try to make sure that we do everything we can to take care of our customers. Okay, so exceeding expectations. This is again a point that Mike heavily elaborated on. It's making sure that first of all, it's making sure that you properly manage your customers' expectations, because you don't want to end up in a situation where you're stuck in a corner and no matter what you do, you can't make people happy, because that can easily happen. You can spend hours and hours of time and still end up with people that will just not be satisfied. You have to make sure that you're managing your customers' expectations. Make sure they know exactly what they're getting and what they're not getting. People generally don't expect something unless you've just made it clear that, okay, this is kind of what you should expect from us, or this is generally what the industry kind of the industry standard for what you're asking is. Once you have that gives you a lot of flexibility to go above and beyond. Basically, at that point, when you've established kind of like a standard ground, then you can actually go above that and impress your customers by going above that line. So, for instance, we advertise our support to be available during our core business hours, 9 to 5. That's when most of our engineers are available, in Waterloo, and our sales team, and pretty much like everyone in the company is available during that time. And if anyone actually sends us an email after those hours, we say, hey, thanks for contacting us. We're open again tomorrow, 9 a.m. We'll make sure that we'll have a response for you then. But we actually have agents that are working around the clock that actually monitor tickets and kind of make sure that we still respond to customers. And that's actually been a huge success for us, because people are just generally not expecting us to be around. And then when they get an email from us, they're like, wow, this is amazing. This is incredible. Like, I can't believe you guys are actually sticking around to answer my questions. So, it's simple things like that. Here, actually, this is another example of how we actually managed to go exceeding a customer's expectation. This is an unhappy customer, Alex. Essentially, in this email, he's telling us that he purchased our software for a client. He's a contractor. He purchased it for a client, and he didn't know that there's a kind of a separate module that he needs to have in order to make his online store connect to Facebook, so that basically his client can start rewarding Facebook actions. The extra module is like $100, and he's frustrated that how come it's not working? He didn't know that he had to do that. So my response to him was that, hey, listen, I completely understand where you're coming from. We'll contact the third-party module vendor, and we'll try to get a copy on your behalf, a copy of that module for you, basically on your behalf. And I'm hoping that this will help the situation. So that right there was just so impressive to him. He said, okay, wow, that's thanks so much. You're a lifesaver, and I must say your customer support is excellent. Okay, this is we might have lost $100 buying that extension for him, but long-term goals, focusing on long-term goals, he is now really happy with us. This actually helps us dramatically with word of mouth, especially in the community that we are specifically. And he's a contractor that's very likely that he's going to work with some other merchant down the road, and he's going to be like, hey, you know what? These guys at Sweet Tooth, they're amazing. They will help you out. They will make sure that you're taken care of. And that's what we decided that is our core value, and has really helped us out so far, give us the amazing reputation. So yeah, the final thing that we kind of utilize when we're dealing with our customers is we make the whole experience very personal. We're not your typical service desk that kind of tries to get rid of you as soon as they can. We care about our customers. We make sure they understand that we care about them. We try to learn about them as much as we can, and we try to really understand their needs and kind of accommodate as much as we can. I mean, we are a business at the end of the day, and we have to make sure that our business goals are aligned with time that we spend and the resources that we have available. But if we can, we try our best to go as far as possible to help our customers, and they know that, and they understand that, and that word spreads. The fact that we care about them actually spreads around. Part of making the whole experience very, very personal is just being proactive too. Every once in a while we notice that someone is not doing so well with the reward campaigns. Like they contact us for some reason, and we happen to notice that the rewards campaigns aren't the most optimal for their business. So we would go back and be like, hey, listen, I noticed that you've set up this kind of rule. This is probably not gonna turn out to be so profitable for you. Here's what you could do instead. And this was completely non-provoked. For instance. Or we try to remember who's contacted us, who's been struggling in the past, so that we can go back and be like, hey, by the way, John, how did that issue work out that you were struggling with last time? How did tell us more about it. Tell us what's going on right now. Are you running into any other problems? It's kind of just making that whole experience personal, which really goes a long way. So yeah, to basically recap what our focus is in terms of implementation of customer service strategies at Sweet Tooth is that we start with our culture. We make sure that we have all the right resources available. We built an amazing support team. We constantly strive to exceed expectations, and we make it personal. I'll hand this back to Mike. He's going to continue on what it actually means to be in the customer service industry.
So basically, one of the things you can do at a startup is one of the most powerful things we've said is put a customer service strategy in place. So after that, you have to gauge success after that. There's no point in just putting a system into place and then just hoping and praying that it's going to work. You actually have to look at some certain metrics. And those metrics are going to help you eventually adjust and improve on your loyalty program, your customer service program, sorry. We get involved in customer loyalty quite a lot, so loyalty program is a natural thing for me to say. So Net Promoter Score is the #1 metric that you should be tracking at your business. And I'll explain what Net Promoter Score is, but basically you should remember it as the way that you can make your business grow. If your Net Promoter Score increases, then your business will inevitably grow. So the way you gather Net Promoter Score is you say to your customers, how likely are you to recommend our brand to a colleague or friend? Try and make this anonymous so you can get some honest responses, but you will generally scale this out of 10. This is if you have North American customers. For some reason in Europe, people will go with a 5 if they're sort of middle of the road, whereas in North America, they'll go with a 7 or 8 if they're in the middle of the road. So just something interesting to keep in mind there. So this is, it's normalized towards the North American audience, so just keep that in mind if you have clients in Europe. So ask them this question, and then we take all those results and then we do something pretty cool with them. So what we do is we take the number of promoters, or the percent of promoters, so the percent of the responders who answered 9 or 10, and then we subtract the percent of people who answered 0 through 6. So 0 through 6, if you were to think of a brand where you would rate 0 through 6, if someone asked you, let's say I called up brand X and asked for a refund on my product, and they say, oh no, you're at 31 days and we have a 30-day refund policy. I'm not going to rate them above 7. I'm going to rate them like a 5 or a 4 or something like that. Even if the product was great, I still wanted a different color or something after the 31 days. They didn't give me a refund. It's like, okay, that's okay. I'll give that a 5. That's actually a detracting customer experience, or I'm classified as a detractor then, because if someone asked me about my experience with the brand, I would say, yeah, it's good, but I mean, they're not that great with customer service, or like they were pretty annoying when I got on the phone and they wouldn't give me this refund out, even though it was only 1 day over the refund period. So that's why 0 through 6 is a detractor, because it can detract someone else from potentially interacting or using your brand. So the promoters are the 9s and 10s. Those are the ones who've had the great experiences. Generally, those are the ones who you've gone above and beyond with expectations for. So the Net Promoter Score ends up being a number. So on here, you may not be able to see, but I've provided some averages for Net Promoter Score. So we can see airlines, their average Net Promoter Score is 60%. You can probably guess some other Net Promoter Scores are lower. So internet service, life insurance, those are around 13% and 19%. What's another low one? Cable and service providers. A really high one is banking for some reason. I don't really know why. And then grocery and supplements, Trader Joe's in the US is at 82%. So you can look on here, Apple is one of the highest Net Promoter Scores at 72%. So that's pretty interesting to note, because you can probably think of how many people promote Apple as a brand. They say, yeah, I'm getting the new iPhone, it's great. It's like, what are the new features? And it's like, I don't even know. Like, I just want the iPhone so much. So that is sort of a 9 or 10. Whereas if someone had gone with another cell phone provider, another cell phone manufacturer, they probably aren't in the 9 or 10 range. Like, Samsung's working on it, but there's some other brands that are not that high. And the reason Apple is able to grow so fast is because they have a lot of word of mouth marketing, and that's done through their Net Promoter Score. Now, Apple has accomplished a high Net Promoter Score with a combination of a lot of things. I'm not going to pretend that it's customer service that has got Apple to where they are, but customer service plays into Net Promoter Score, and you can achieve a high Net Promoter Score with great customer service. So highlighting Apple in there. So your Net Promoter Score is highly dependent on region, but it's also dependent on industry and customer base. If you are providing, if you're selling something that's necessary, sort of a necessary evil, you probably won't have a great Net Promoter Score, but you still could be pretty successful as a business. For example, an oil manufacturer, for example, like Shell, they're doing pretty well. They're probably not going to have a high Net Promoter Score, just because everyone has to buy petrol every day. Everyone has to buy gasoline. So it's highly dependent on the industry you're in. If you're in an industry where things are nice to haves, so for example, like, I don't know, cruise lines or something like that, and you're doing really well as a cruise line, then that's probably because you're providing a superior product or really great customer service. So they're useful to measure improvement, because what you can do is actually when you ask, let's see if we can go back. When you ask this question here, what you can do is you can ask why. So you can say, why did you rate us that way? And usually that'll give you some good insight. So if someone rates you a 2, it's like, why? It's like, well, I sent you guys an email last month, you didn't answer. So it's like, okay, well, now we can address that problem with one of our interaction channels. It's if someone rates you a 9 or 10, you're wondering, how did we get to that 9 or 10? They're saying, well, I really like this feature. It's like, well, maybe it's time we put that feature in a bit more of our marketing material. So it really lets you improve. Go back. And it's generally not productive to compare your Net Promoter Score to your competition, because your competition will likely not be targeting exactly the same target market as you. And obviously, sometimes as startups, it's pretty tough to actually get Net Promoter Score on your competition. So what you should focus on is if you can gather data on Net Promoter Score, even if it's a sample of like 10 customers or 100 customers or some small sample number, it's really useful because you measure it now, you measure it in 3 months, measure it in 3 months from then. See if you're improving, and then if you're not, figure out why you're not. Ask your customers that why question. Figure out what the reason they're rating you low scores are and why those detractors exist. Also, you want to avoid, if you notice something interesting with the formula here, you notice something with the passives. We don't actually include those at all. The reason is because they don't create word of mouth advertising in either direction. They don't bias people towards or away from your brand. So they're pretty, obviously they're great to have. So if you have a lot of passives, you can think of like a gasoline station or like a petrol station. So those people will still continue to interact with your brand, likely because the barrier to entry of switching to another brand is high, but they won't promote your brand to other people, which is what we're really looking for. And if you're a startup, you're looking for aggressive growth, then you need promoters. And getting promoters is what we're all, basically the focus of this presentation. Okay, so yeah, not productive to compare to your competition unless you're a large company, which for the majority of people, it's not the case. So high Net Promoter Score companies, we already discussed WestJet and Zappos and Apple, but also ING Direct. This study was done last year, but they have an exceptionally high Net Promoter Score. And so if you look at ING Direct, they used to do a lot of heavy TV ads, but then they scaled that back. You notice they're not on radio and TV as much. They don't need to do advertising anymore. They provide a really quality product, online banking, and they do it with a really high degree of customer service. They said, all right, we're not going to focus on branches. We're going to build up a really, really high quality customer support team on the phone. So when someone calls into ING Direct, they have a really great experience, and then they will promote our brand. If you think about, if you're on ING Direct, why are you on ING Direct? It's probably because someone else told you that ING Direct was a good thing to go with. Southwest Airlines, I know it's probably not, you're probably not as familiar with Southwest here, but they're basically the WestJet of the southern United States. They do a really good job with customer service. They go above and beyond. There's one video actually online of a flight attendant on Southwest. Instead of doing the standard emergency briefing at the beginning of the flight, he does a rap and gets everyone like clapping on the plane and like things like that. Providing that to your customers are things that will increase your Net Promoter Score and get you to that status where you can start growing just off your promoters. So alternate metrics that you can look at are customer satisfaction. Obviously, these aren't as quantifiable. So you can say How satisfied are you with our brand out of 10? Someone gives you a 5, you're like, okay, great. What do I do with that? Customer happiness, I would recommend using a binary scale with this. So similar to how 37 Signals does, a smiley face or a happy face after they interact with your brand. And then tracking referrals per customer. So I'll go into tracking these. So for example, with Dropbox, Dropbox, I don't know if you're familiar with their business model, but it's to provide basically, if you sign up for Dropbox, I think you can get 1 or 2 gigabytes of free storage space in the cloud that syncs with your desktop. And what you can do is you can pay for the paid versions where you get 50 gigabytes of storage. But what you can do is increase your 1 gigabyte of free storage if you haven't signed up for a paid plan by referring other customers who sign up. And so they know their conversion ratio from a free to a paid customer is enough to justify the cost of that storage. So what they do is they encourage referrals, and they exactly track the referrals on their site, and they make it really fun to refer customers. You'll see a lot of people referring their entire contact list just because they want to get more space on Dropbox. And Dropbox knows this, and they've basically calculated the rates. So encouraging referrals and tracking referrals per customer helps you identify not only your best customers, but sometimes your best partners as well. So looking at which partners and resellers you should interact with. So 37 Signals, I mentioned this a couple times here at the presentation, but they have a customer happiness report. And it's basically after you interact with 37 Signals support team, they say, how did you like your experience? Was it happy? Sorry, I guess they have 3 options. Happy face, I guess neutral face, and then sad face. So in their last 100 customer ratings, they display this right on their site. And I've checked it a couple of times. It does actually update. It's not just an image that they put up there, which would be kind of cheap. But they have 88% said great, 6 said just okay, and 6 said not so good. So I'm sure, I can assure you that the 37 Signals team is not happy with this 6% that said not so good. Because of these 88% that said great, I can guarantee you not all those are 9 or 10s on the Net Promoter Score scale. So these ones are definitely detractors though, and I can guarantee you these probably are detractors as well. So now they have 12 detractors, so 12% detractors. I don't know what number of these 88% would be promoters, but that means they need to increase their Net Promoter Score, and they do it by eliminating these, and obviously increasing these into being in the 9 and 10 scale on that Net Promoter Score. So this is something that's helpful, but you can see how, to explain this, I was going back to Net Promoter Score again. So Net Promoter Score, I would argue, is the most important metric that you can look at when it comes to customer satisfaction. So another cool thing that 37 Signals does, they update it dynamically, and you can go through and just see the order of happy faces and sad faces. So another thing from the 37 Signals website, I'm drawing on them again because they are one of the original successful internet companies. And I know there's quite a few internet, IT, B2B, B2C companies, especially around Mars. There's a lot in KW where we are in the Communitech Hub. It's important to strive for customer happiness, not just customer satisfaction. That's what Mohsen was talking about, Zappos, where we take our example from. Going for customer happiness above satisfaction that ties into that aspect of going one step further than what's expected. So take what's expected, imagine what the type of support you would give to make the customer not complain anymore, and then go 2 steps above that. So we'll look at a couple strategies for customer service. This is sort of a review of what I talked about before. So know your channels, interaction channels, and reputation channels. Make sure you identify all of those in any business that you're part of, any business you're mentoring, because these are powerful questions. It's where are your customers talking about you? Where are you interacting with your customers? Where your customers want to be interacting with you and you're not there yet? So look at all of those, everything that fits into those 2 categories, and figure out a plan for both of those. Ensure your Net Promoter Score is measured somehow. If you have 1 customer, ask them, out of 10, would you refer us to one of your friends or another business? If they say 7, it's like, well, you're our 1 customer. Like, let's figure out how to get you into a 9 or a 10. The initial customers have to be promoters, and you have to have the majority as promoters. I'm sure a lot of you have read the book Crossing the Chasm. You need to, basically the thesis is that you need to really, really convince the early adopters or the people who first adopt your technology in order to capture the rest of the market. The only way to do that is to have them as promoters. So ask your customers, even if you don't have very many, ask them and figure out what your net promoter score would be. And then get feedback. So ask that why question as well. And that gives you a huge amount of insight into what you can do to improve. And then provide quality interaction. So Mohsen mentioned this, I mentioned this earlier in the presentation. So quick responses always, and then deliver the unexpected. So get started early is one of the things I always tell startups that we mentor and that we see around the hub. We're part of Hyperdrive, which is one of the funds in Waterloo. And what we tell businesses that we interact with, especially B2B businesses, is focused on customers first. So your customers are going to help you improve your product. You're going to design a product that may or may not fit the market. Likely 99.9% of the time it won't fit the market. So you rely on your customers to provide input, to provide feedback on which features you need, and to provide you with validation that this is going to work for your business. So focus on your customers first, because they're the ones who are going to make you successful. And then remember, you need to provide either amazing product or amazing support. Initially, we obviously weren't in a position to provide amazing product, and no one is in a position to provide amazing product initially. There's the mentality now that you should not sort of focus on a final product and then launch. It's launch early and then iterate often. As a result of that, you're going to get to market sooner, and you're going to figure out your product market fit sooner. But as a result of that, you're going to run into a lot of customer support issues. So you need to provide amazing support initially. And if you're running a startup, you should be doing that above all else. And yeah, so the saying, the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, second best time is today. So get started on this early, and by early I mean sort of right away. So we'll give you a couple tips on getting started right now. So a culture of customer service sort of feeds into everything we've talked about. If you have every employee at your company believing that customer service is the most important thing in your business, then people will start to encourage others to treat customers well. Provide tips on how to improve the customer service and go from there. It's one of the most effective marketing strategies, and it improves that net promoter score that's sort of central to everything we're talking about. So finally, just a tweet from one of our interaction channels. Just had a great conversation with Steve at Sweet Tooth. Really looking forward to trying out the software. This is someone who called our number thinking we were selling something else. So they thought we were selling Magento software. And we actually had a conversation with them. And then finally, they had such a great conversation with Steve, who wasn't actually trying to sell them Sweet Tooth at the time. He was just informing them about what was going on. He had such a great experience with that conversation that he said, oh, so what do you guys do? And then he started talking about the software. And so Derek is now actually one of our best partners. And it all resulted from an accidental call that he made to us thinking we were selling some other software. So great customer service like that turns people into promoters, and Derek is now a promoter of Sweet Tooth. So things like that can happen for any startup. Just make sure that the positive customer experience is there and the customer service culture is there. So that was the whole presentation, but we were going to end sort of with a 5-point things to implement today, and what I want you to take away from this, and what I want you to get started with at whatever startup you're involved with or advising. So the first thing is identify the core values. So what are the top 3 things that motivate you and that are going to drive your business forward? I guarantee you one of them is customer service, but be specific about that. Be like, I want to increase our revenues, the revenues of our customers. Or I want to, say for example, you were offering something that minimized downtime on a server. I want to make sure our customers' downtime is at this rate so they can save this amount of money. Be specific and make sure you're always helping people with these core values. So identify core values, write them on the board in your office, and don't erase them. Put that PLO symbol in the bottom, please leave on. Make sure those are always in view of everyone at your company, because that is what's going to drive you forward. We have these written on the board at Sweet Tooth, and they are not coming off. We're going to make a poster with them, because customer service is the thing that's going to drive your company forward. So establish processes. So this is a very simple flow chart. But a process is really important to establishing a business and establishing a scalable business where you can say, I want a customer who interacts with us by Twitter to interact with our brand this way. Establish processes for every way a customer can interact with the interaction channels and the reputation channels. So implement systems. So once you've established processes, you know how you want everything to work in terms of how people interact with your brand, then implement the necessary systems to make that work. So Boomerang, I would recommend. Zendesk as a support system. Nutshell is a CRM system that's very lightweight and can be used easily for small businesses. Streak is another one. Make sure you implement the right systems to make everything work. And we can definitely provide feedback if you want to talk to us after about providing the information about the right systems for your particular startup or the startup you're mentoring. We can definitely help with that. Track everything. And tracking everything comes down to how many emails are going unanswered per hour. What's our backlog of support tickets? How many people are giving us good reviews? Track absolutely everything and track it in one central place so you can see improvement. Identify what your metrics are. Net Promoter Score should be one of them, but make sure you're tracking other important key metrics like responses per hour of support members, number of complaints that you receive per month, things like that, and make sure that you're improving on each of those. And then talk to your customers and users. So this is the CEO of Salesforce doing one of his keynote speeches at Dreamforce, and he does this every year. He walks through the audience. And that's a pretty key thing, and it's very symbolic of why Salesforce is successful. It's because they talk to their customers, and they're very close to their customers. And that's the way every startup should be. There's the notion that an internet business can be located anywhere and doesn't really have to interact with anyone to be successful. Not true. Like you have to interact with your customers on an ongoing basis and be really close to your customers so you can improve, iterate, but also establish those brand promoters and really grow your business. Establishing brand promoters is the focus of our talk here, and we hope we've given you a couple of ideas as to how you can sort of address your current strategies with customer service, but then also move forward with an effective plan for establishing your reputation as a business that provides excellent customer service, and then building your business into something really scalable. All right, thanks a lot, guys, and we'll open it up to questions now. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, I got two questions. The first question is, how big is your team to support? I mean, how do you handle the volume?
Right. Okay. So we have a team. Actually, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, sure. At this moment, we have about 8 people on our support team. And as Mike mentioned, one of our biggest success points is the tools that we use. So Zendesk is kind of our support portal. It really helps us kind of streamline our processes and make sure that everyone gets fast responses, make sure that we're tracking response times and everything, every metric that actually matters to us, we try to kind of reflect off of that.
Then my second part is, how do you balance between the response times, and you mentioned about you got processes. Does it cause the overlap between the process and the actual time that you solve the problem? I suspect it's already answered in your first questions.
One example that we do is if we get a support ticket and we know it's going to take an engineer 2 hours to solve. Maybe it's a problem with our product even. What you can do is get right back to that person and say, hey, we're going to have a solution for you in 2 days, and we're going to actually do this extra thing for you as well. And then hopefully you can provide that solution in 1 day and then go from there. But it's the quick response initially, just setting the expectations. I think you don't have to get back right with the solution right away, but I think initially, and this is true with everything, if you email someone asking for a deliverable, getting a response right back saying, okay, you can expect this in 5 hours is really helpful, as opposed to just the person responding in 5 hours with the deliverable.
Yeah, thanks.
Yes?
Regarding your hiring process of your customer support team,
Yeah.
is there one question that kind of is key to your hiring process that you kind of see it as a no-go kind of scenario, or is there a process that you do in hiring and interviewing that is key that you can talk about? Right.
Yeah, so I wouldn't say there's one question that kind of identifies that, but there is a kind of a feel to, would this person match our culture? Would this person fit right in the culture? And it's about kind of having an open conversation. For me, for instance, when I do my interviews, it's a very casual, just trying to make the person like open up and see how friendly they are, how good can they actually connect with people, how good, because those are really essentially the customer service skills that you're looking for, the being able to be good at those soft skills and kind of come out of any kind of social situation. So that's kind of our strategy in hiring.
Then you've hired 8 so far. Out of that 8, how many have you let go?
Well, we've had like iterations, of course. Like we've actually had like we've been in this business for like 2 years almost now. We've had a couple. We've had, I think, like three people that we've let go on the team. But we've had a lot of additions. I mean, we didn't start off with 8. There was a couple that started, like we started off, I think, with like 2 people, and then we slowly grew to where we are right now.
One thing you can do with hiring that's interesting is you could always, in an interview process or pre-interview, you could give people examples of questions that would come up in customer support, and then give them access to your knowledge base or a demo of your product and be like, how would you answer this question? Can you just structure an email response? And then take a look at that response. Make sure they're being really conscientious of the needs of the example question. And then see if you like the response, basically. If it's leaves some questions unanswered, then give them another one and see if they improve for the next one. And that usually provides a lot of insight. Like, we've made hiring decisions based on sort of example projects like that, which we find is pretty useful, because usually you'll find that out within a few weeks of them starting anyways. Yes?
So, we send, we ask our clients our NPS scores after they're done using our mobile application.
Yeah.
We provide mobile apps. And it's in the form of a survey. We follow up with them. If they don't respond, how do we treat that NPS score? Like, we were thinking, do we base it on their tickets? Like, we can review their tickets and we can review their experience. Obviously, if they're really mad at some point, then they're not going to be a promoter. But how do you guys handle people who don't get back to you with NPS score?
Right. Okay. So that comes down to like email. Like, when you send an NPS score out by email, there's a bias towards either the promoters or extreme detractors. You don't get those middle detractors from like 5, 6, and then the 7, 8s generally won't respond as well. So what I would recommend is, in your support system, asking for phone numbers, and trying to get phone numbers wherever possible. And it helps if you get someone on the phone, because then they'll give you a more honest response.
Would they though? Because like, I feel that if I was on the phone, and if they're really mad, then they'll definitely voice out they're not happy. But also, when you hear, I feel that sometimes you won't get an honest response.
Yeah, so you may have to balance it then. If you feel like, we have customers who are totally honest for us. Like, the thing is, you're going to end up with bias either way, and it's just making sure that whatever number you come up with at the end of that's improving over time. I think that's the only way around that, because you're never going to get a true bias. The only way is if you took everyone, stuck them in a room, and said, write down something before you leave, or pay them some amount of money to answer the question as well, or give them a coupon. So there always is going to be associated bias with that, as well as any other survey. But as long as you're seeing improvement, and you're structuring the question the same way. So if you're doing email one time, don't do phone the next time, and you get way worse results, and then you're like, oh, we'll shut down our business now because our NPS score is down. Make sure it's consistent over time, and then that you're seeing an improvement. And if not, figure out why not.
And I think market actually has to do a lot with that too. Like, our audience might react differently than yours would.
Yes.
In a business that's established and it's been in business in, let's say, 60 years, specifically it's a credit union, a bank, a financial institution. Customer service, it's not the focus point, or it's not as good. In an institution like that, where would you start, and how would you start to implement the principles that you mentioned? Would it be similar to the principles that you mentioned at the end of your presentation, or would it be different? I mean, you have board of directors, you have your CEO, you have the management team, and you have frontline staff that's been around with the institution for a long time. and it's just embedded in them that customer service is not really as important. And how would you go about, like, how would you start
So,
making it more customer,
like, we always have the belief that customer service has to be all the way through, right? So I would figure out how to get in front of the board and deliver a compelling story for why customer service needs to be a priority. Because if you think about, like, how does a credit union grow? It's through word of mouth generally, I would imagine. And if it's not happening through customer service, then it has to be the product. And if the product isn't providing that word of mouth marketing, then you need to convince the board, basically, and the CEO that customer service needs to be a priority. It comes back to that's why culture was the first thing that was listed on the sort of 5 things to implement today. Culture is the number one. If you don't have culture, there's no point in implementing all the procedures and processes after that. It really is, that's a tough question because you have an established business.
it's established six.
Yeah, and I'm assuming everyone who's on the board or the majority of people who are on the board or the CEO have been there for a while as well.
And yeah, they're compliant.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a really tough question because implementing a new culture is probably one of the hardest things you can do. Like people get fired over culture reasons. And so, I mean, anyone involved in HR here could probably agree with me that if someone's not a fit on the culture side, that's one of the hardest things to change. So I don't have a sort of magic answer, but I can only say if you can get in front of the board and the CEO and sort of explain why this is necessary. Like you can come up with compelling evidence with NPS scores and things like that. But I mean, that's probably the most effective thing you can do. Yeah.
I have a question about the handoff between your sales team and support team. Do you have your sales team doing post-sales support and your support team doing pre-sales support in any way?
So we're sort of a funny product in that we provide a freemium product initially, and then once people realize that they want to use SweetTooth, they can upgrade to a paid plan. So the system that we've implemented with Zendesk allows for handoff between the sales and support team, just by saying, I want to assign this to the sales team or I want to assign this to the support team. So when an email comes in, we can easily take an issue that let's say someone's on the free plan of our product and they want to upgrade to the paid plan, but they've been experiencing issues before that, so they've been talking to the support team. The support team can at any time transfer that to the sales team if there's sort of like, okay, yeah, I want to use SweetTooth now. How do I get started and make this live on my store? So putting a system in place, whether it's spreadsheet, like spreadsheet's obviously the most basic, but or something like Zendesk, make sure that there is a transition there where it's seamless. And the most important thing is just that there's a process that everyone's aware of. And so as sort of the leader of your business, you need to set the process out and say, this is what everyone's going to follow when we do a transition. Here are the times that we can possibly do a transition. Transition will probably be immediately post-sale. Someone contacts the salesperson looking for help. That's generally what happens. And how does that salesperson do a smooth transition to the support team? Because no one likes to feel like they're being handed off. But generally, the conversation goes something like, this person on our team is actually a specialist in this. I'm going to actually let them sort of lead the conversation. And making that as smooth as possible is really helped by putting a system and a process in place. So I'd recommend something like Zendesk, to be honest, for something like that, if that's what you're running into at your company.
My question was more about relationship, because sometimes, I don't know if you guys run into this for your business, but for some of the B2B businesses, it really helps if the salesperson also follows through with support. It creates that relationship.
Yeah.
Whereas, you might have the same person calling the customer support and then 5 different people during the day answer the question. You have to keep explaining the same problem.
So ensuring that the relationship's consistent?
Yeah, we use Desk, by the way, which is very similar to
Yeah, exactly. So what we've done in our system is we've made a way when people contact us, it's flagged sort of what tier of customer they are and who they've interacted with. So generally, if someone's familiar with an issue, like we have a really great customer support person on our team named Sherry, and she keeps track of who's talking to who. And so she ensures the relationship between once you're within support at our company is consistent. And unless you're escalated to sort of level 3 engineering support, then you will be talking to the same person throughout your experience. Obviously, it's tricky when you do phone support as well, because then there will be some transferring. Like say the person they always talk to is on the phone at the time when they call in. There's just no way around that. You're not going to be able to get them in touch with the right person if they want support right then. So you have to be creative there, but systems like Desk.com and Zendesk really help.
Mike and Mohsen, thank you so much for joining us today and for making the trip in to share your secrets and your customer service strategy. To the audience, I just wanted to let you know that we'll send you an email next week. You'll get the presentation slides and the presentation video. There's also a short survey. So if you'll please take a few minutes to answer the survey questions, let us know what we're doing well, what we can improve, what other topics you'd like to see in these best practices presentation. It will help us serve you better as customers. Thanks.
All right, thanks a lot, everyone.
Good day.